Which is Which, Part 2. Sarah was wandering along brick corridors. They were still high and forbidding, but at least they didn't stretch out to the end of space and time, and sometimes there was a flight of steps, which made a nice change. Whenever she came to a fork or a turning and made a choice, she had found a sensible way of ensuring that she did not wander in circles. With the lipstick she had put in her pocket at home, she made an arrow on a brick at each junction to show where she had come from. And whenever she put the lipstick away and walked off down her new corridor, a little creature would lift the marked brick, turn it upside down, and replace it so that the arrow was not visible. After she had marked 18 arrows, a piece of the lipstick broke off as she was doing the next one. Determined to remain calm, she screwed another length out and went on her chosen way, up some steps, into a chamber. Across the end of the passage behind her, a squad of goblins rustled by, but Sarah's eyes were fixed on what lay ahead, and she did not see them. The chamber was a dead end. She peeked in every alcove and behind the buttresses, but there was definitely no way out. She shrugged and retraced her steps to the 19th arrow. When she reached the corner, she looked for her arrow and could not see it. "That's odd," she thought. "I'm sure it was right here, at that corner, on that brick there." The bricks were blank. She frowned and looked about her. On the floor, she spotted the broken-off piece of lipstick. She looked again, hard, and still could see no arrow. That proved it, then. Something fishy was going on. She threw down the rest of the lipstick. "Someone's been rubbing out my marks," she said loudly, certain the culprit must be close enough to hear her. "What a horrid place this is! It's not fair." "That's right," a voice behind her said. "It's not fair." She jumped and whipped around. Behind her, in the chamber that had been a dead end, she now saw 2 carved doors in the wall, and a guard posted in front of each door. At least, she thought they must be guards, since they stood 4 square and were emblazoned with armor. But as she studied them, she was not so sure. They were quite comic, really. Their enormous shields, which were curiously patterned with geometrical figures and scrolls and devices, looked extremely heavy, which would account for the straddle-legged stance each of them had. "Poor things," she thought. "They have to stand like that all the time just to stay upright." The one to her left had incredibly shifty eyes beneath his helmet, and she said to herself that she would call him Alf, after an uncle of hers with eyes like that. But then she reflected that his not quite identical twin to her right, she couldn't see his eyes at all because his helmet was too big for him, should therefore be called Ralph, R for right, you see. And so mentally she corrected the spelling of the first one's name to ALPH, not ALF. Not that it mattered to anyone, because she wouldn't be writing their names down. Having settled, in her mind, the business of names, she noticed the most remarkable thing of all, which was that from underneath each shield peered another face, upside down, a little like a jack of spades gone wrong. The upside-down characters, whom she named Jim and Tim, the first rhymed pair that came to her mind, seemed to be hanging on to their uncomfortable positions by the great gnarled and horny hands she could see gripping the bottom of the shields. They must have added yet more to the burdens under which Alf and Ralph staggered. It was Jim upside down who made her jump by addressing her. He added, "And that's only half of it." "Half of what?" asked Sarah, twisting and ducking her head to get a good look at Jim's face. It would, she felt, have been faintly rude to remain upright. You had to adjust to people you met even here. "Half of twice as much," Jim replied. Twice as much of what? Sarah was exasperated. Twice as much as half of it. Look. Sarah raised a finger and pointed to the back wall of the chamber. This was a dead end a moment ago, she said. No, it was Tim upside down speaking now. That's the dead end behind you. She stood upright again and turned around. He was right. The way by which she had come in here was indeed now barred by a solid wall. Oh, she exclaimed indignantly. It's not fair. This place keeps changing. What am I supposed to do? It depends upon who's doing the supposing, Jim said. Not half, Tim agreed. Try one of the doors, suggested Jim. One of them leads to the castle, Tim told her in a cheerful voice, and the other one leads to certain death. Sarah gasped. Which is which? Jim shook his upside-down head. We can't tell you. Why not? We don't know, Jim crowed triumphantly. But they do. Tim nodded confidentially at Alf and Ralph. That took some doing upside down, Sarah thought. Then I'll ask them, she said. Before she could say anything more, Ralph was speaking in a very slow, pedantic voice. Ah, no, you can't ask us. You can ask only one of us. He appeared to have difficulty in getting the words out at all, especially the C's and K's. It's in the rules. Alf's voice came fast and sneering, and at the same time his eyes shifted uneasily. He was tapping a finger on some ciphers on his shield, which were presumably the rules. And I think I should warn you that one of us always tells the truth and one of us always lies. That's a rule too. His glance flickered at Ralph. He always lies. Don't listen to him, Ralph said sententiously. He's lying. I'm the one who tells the truth. That's a lie, Alf retorted. Jim and Tim were snickering behind their shields, rather insolently, she thought. You see, Tim told Sarah, even if you ask one of them, you won't know if the answer you get is true or false. Now, wait a minute, she said. I know this riddle. I've heard it before, but I've never figured it out. She heard Ralph muttering to himself. He's lying. He's lying, Alf replied. Sarah was scratching her brow. There's one question I can ask, and it doesn't matter which one of them I ask it. She clicked her tongue, impatient with herself. Oh, what could it be? Come on, Tim said touchily. We can't stand round here all day. What do you mean we can't? Jim snapped. That's our job. We're gatekeepers. Oh, yes, I forgot. Be quiet, Sarah ordered. I can't think. I tell the truth, Ralph declared pedantically from under his helmet. Oh, Alf answered. What a lie. Sarah was trying to work it out logically for herself. With a finger thoughtfully in the air, she reasoned. The first thing to do is find out which one's the liar. But no, there's no way of doing that. So, the next thing to do is find a question you can put to either one and get the same answer. Oh, that's a good one, Tim was guffawing. One of us always tells the truth and the other one always lies. And you want to find a question we'll both give the same answer to. Oh, that'll be the day. That's a good one, that is. Oh. Sarah narrowed her eyes. She thought she might have gotten it. Now, she said, whom shall I ask? Alf and Ralph pointed at each other. With a little smile, Sarah said to Ralph, answer yes or no. Would he, and she pointed at Alf, tell me that this door, she pointed at the door behind Ralph, leads to the castle? Alf and Ralph looked at her, then at each other. They conferred in whispers. Ralph looked up at her. Yes. Then the other door leads to the castle, Sarah concluded, and this door leads to certain death. How do you know? Ralph asked slowly. His voice was aggrieved. He could be telling you the truth. Then you wouldn't be, Sarah replied. So if you tell me he said yes, I know the answer was no. She was very pleased with herself. Ralph and Alf looked dejected, feeling that they had obscurely been cheated. But I could be telling the truth, Ralph objected. Then he would be lying, Sarah said, allowing herself a broad smile of pleasure. So if you tell me that he said yes, the answer would still be no. Wait a minute, Ralph said. He frowned. Is that right? I don't know, replied Alf airily. I wasn't listening. It's right, Sarah told them. I figured it out. I never could until now. She beamed. I may be getting smarter. She walked to the door behind Alf. Very clever, I'm sure, Jim remarked disappointedly and stuck his tongue out at her. She stuck hers out back at him as she pushed open the door. Over her shoulder as she left them, she said, This is a piece of cake. She stepped through the doorway and fell straight down a shaft. Sarah screamed. The top of the shaft was a fast-dwindling disk of light.